Hello everyone, this is Ramon Medina, and I'm going to be doing a small presentation on the historiography of the Meiji Restoration. So, what is the Meiji Restoration? The Meiji Restoration is arguably one of the most significant events in Japanese history, as it brought about the modernization of Japan, brought new technologies, ideas, and political values or political views to Japan. The restoration pretty much brought power back to the emperor and ultimately ended the old and weakened Tokugawa government in 1868. Although the Meiji Restoration was a restoration, it is seen by some historians as a revolution because it was a pivotal moment in Japanese history that changed Japan's government, military, and society by mixing old Japanese traits and with with new modern Western values and ideas. Some of the common questions and arguments seen in historical literature and historical material on the Meiji Restoration are one of the big ones is what caused the Meiji Restoration? Um, did Western nations prompt the change in Japan, or did these Western nations only hasten the process or hasten a process that had already begun? So, what led to the Meiji Restoration? We have three big main factors that most historical literature and material will agree on. Is the Perry expedition of 1853, a weak and deteriorating Tokugawa shogunate government, and an ambition to catch up with the rest of the world. So let's go a little bit deeper into these three categories here. So usually Western literature, Western historians will put a little bit more of an emphasis on Matthew Perry's expedition of 1853. So before the Meiji Restoration, Japan had isolated itself and limited its interactions with foreign nations for about 200 years. It wasn't until Commodore Matthew Perry's expedition in 1853 that Japan was forced to open up to the outside world. Perry's expedition was not the first time Japan interacted with foreign nations. It was just the most recent in many years. And what it did was it basically opened Japan's eyes and made them realize that they had seriously fallen behind compared to the other to the rest of the world. And if they wanted to catch up to America and Europe, they would ultimately have to emulate them. So, older historical material and usually Western historical material, North American and European literature on the Meiji Restoration will put a little bit more of an emphasis on the Matthew Perry expedition of 1853, and will argue that this is one of the main catalysts or one of the main factors that pushed Japan into the Meiji Restoration. Um, there is a little bit of a shift in um, in recent years or in different literature, as some historians will argue that it wasn't so much Matthew Perry's expedition, but it was more of an already existing problem. Before the Meiji Restoration, Japan was ruled by the Tokugawa shogunate. The Tokugawa system was a military type of government that relied on a type of social hierarchy with the daimyo, probably not pronouncing that very well, but feudal lords. Feudal lords were at the top of this social hierarchy, and samurai were right under them. Now, the samurai, even though they were right under the feudal lords, they still possessed significant power. They still held significant power. The samurai class was split into three classes. So you had the upper, middle, and lower samurai classes, and Um, there was an economic struggle amongst the samurai classes and amongst the samurai and the feudal lords. So some historians will argue that this is what uh, this was the main reason why Japan made the shift and why the Meiji Restoration happened. Um, because, in short, due to debt and financial inequalities amongst the samurai class, the samurai felt that the government had gotten weak, that they needed to abolish this feudal and social structure because they felt that they were being treated unfair. There were other factors as well to the Tokugawa shogunate. Um, this kind of interconnects with Matthew Perry's expedition, as the Tokugawa government uh, did end up signing some unfair, what they call some unfair treaties with uh, Matthew Perry. Matthew Perry's expedition, when they came over to Japan, they had pretty much forced Japan to sign some unfair treaties and open up the country to the rest of the world. And so the Tokugawa government was the one who signed these treaties. So a lot of Japanese citizens and the samurai class felt that this was just type of embarrassment almost. They were embarrassed that their government had signed these treaties, and it was just a sign of weakness to them. So again, literature is kind of split here. You have some historians siding more with Matthew Perry, saying that that was the main catalyst, and others saying, well, no, there was already problems. There was already a struggle going on, and Matthew Perry's expedition just kind of pushed it a little bit more, or gave it a little bit of extra push um, into a government change. So newer historical material. What's interesting is that newer historical material doesn't focus so much on what caused the Meiji Restoration. Newer historical material goes a little bit more in depth on the implementation of new ideas that the Meiji Restoration brought. So, again, Matthew Perry, he came over to Japan, opened up Japan to the rest of the world, and Japan was able to see that they had fallen behind, not just in political policies and empire building, but also in technology. So, it made Japan realize that in order for them to compete on a global stage, they would have to emulate Western powers or Western nations. Um, However, Japan had built up a sense of national pride. So implementing these new Western and foreign ideas was not going to be an easy task. Introducing new non-Japanese ideas would not settle very well with Japan's population. So to make these changes, Japan employed two strategies to justify Japan's adoption of foreign ideas and policies. These strategies being radical nostalgia and cosmopolitan chauvinism. Cosmopolitan chauvinism. Radical nostalgia was a way of it was a way for the Meiji government to justify new reforms by using ancient policies from Japan's past. And cosmopolitan chauvinism justified foreign knowledge and ideas by claiming that these ideas were not foreign but universal knowledge. Um, and these two strategies are really interesting ways for Japan and the Meiji leaders to reform Japan into a modern nation without giving Japan a sense of betrayal. So I think it's very interesting that historical material did make a little bit of a shift and go more into detail on how the Meiji Restoration started to change Japanese society. They did away with the Tokugawa shogunate, meaning there wasn't this social hierarchy with feudal lords and samurais anymore. Um, uh, Meiji Restoration pretty much did away with all that and brought in new technologies, new policies, new political policies, and it pretty much changed Japanese society. And so we see that there's a shift in older historical material and newer historical material, where the older one focuses on the facts and causes of the Meiji Restoration, while the newer historical material focuses more on the societal impact that the Meiji Restoration had. And so that's pretty much it. That's the two main shifts, or the shifts that I see, is that um, older material focuses more on the Perry expedition, the deteriorating Tokugawa government, and newer material on the Meiji Restoration focuses more on how the Restoration changed Japanese society, how new ideas and policies were implemented, and how social hierarchy in the government kind of was abolished. And that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed my little presentation.